Today, I'm going to talk about how to transform or use user research to drive competitive advantage. I'm Mariana Morris. I'm the founder and CEO of Fruto. At Fruto, we do user experience design and customer experience design from strategy, research, and design. So, having conversations with our clients and organizations that we work with, I want to talk a little bit about the dimensions of user research and how we can utilize some other dimensions to improve the business or to give insights to the business. So this is a quite, a simple way of visualizing. Of course, there are tons of dimensions in terms of user research, but if we look at it in this way, so one of the dimensions is context. So this is the base for any user research or customer research. Why users behave the way they do, and who they are, who are they. So context is the base for any research, regardless of your objectives, right? So we look into the user's context, environment, emotion, motivations, constraints, and goals, and so on. Then, based on that, then the way I see it is there are two large elements or dimensions to user research. One is value, what users or customers currently value, what do they perceive as value, and potential value for them. And on the other side, there is friction. So usability issues, user experience issues, low engagement, drop-offs, and so on. And depending on your research objectives, you might be looking at different methods, right? So for example, to discover value, to understand what users or customers value, you might be doing a discovery research, might be doing user interviews and surveys, and depends on your objectives. And to identify friction, you might be looking at conducting usability tests, or user interviews, or looking at your analytics data, or tree testing, and so on. There are tons of methods that you might be using, but just roughly, you might be looking at these different research methods. Now, the way I see when we are working with our clients and organizations is that there is a lot of emphasis on identifying the friction in user experience and usability. So the weight seems to be much more around this area. Whereas the value side, value to users, value to customers, in terms of do they value the product that you're creating from scratch, this new offering? Do they value these features that you are bringing into the product? Do they value these AI features that you're bringing into the product, right? It typically is not looked in as much detail or in as much frequency as the other side that typically can be quite tactical in terms of let's create something, let's test if it's good enough. But should we create that in the first place? And that's the value aspect. For user research to create business impact, we need to look at these two areas. So we need to amplify the value to users and customers and reduce friction in the user's experience. And that's how we can create business impact. You need to look into the two elements. Value to users arises from the alignment between users' goals and what the product enables them to achieve. And friction arises from the mismatch between users' mental models and the system's design. And the dimensions evolve and change over time. And that's why you need to conduct user research and customer research regularly, because these things change, including the context as well. There is a really interesting video from Joseph Pine talking about the experience economy. And there is a link to the video that he explains much better than I can ever try here, but I will try. So if you think about the coffee, like let's say a cup of coffee, right? At the most kind of where it comes from is the commodity of the coffee beans. Then you package that coffee and you ground it and you then sell it as a good. That increases in value. That cup of coffee now is sold with a higher price than the original coffee beans. Then that is served in a coffee shop, right? Now the cup of coffee is much more expensive. And then you have organizations and let's say like Starbucks when it started, creating an experience. And at that point, the price of a cup of coffee is very different from where it comes from. And that's the experience economy, where for businesses to be competitive, they need to look at the whole experience for that customer. And that's going to add value. Otherwise, they become commoditized. Now, there is the next video from him, and there's a book coming up next year that talks about the transformation economy. How people want to be transformed. What they consume needs to be in line with their aspirations. And that's the transformation economy. You go to the gym to achieve something at the end of that, right? So it's really interesting. I really recommend you watching this. So when you're talking about the market and being competitive in the market, we need to look into these different stages and how to create an experience for the customer and the user. And we know about this, experience economy for a while. But if you think about in the AI era, where the barriers to entry in software are lowering, anyone can create software. Of course, can they maintain? Can they create a business out of it? That's a different story. But the barriers to entry in software is decreasing. The question is, who is going to remain relevant? Who is going to win? How to compete in that market? And that's when we come in and say, actually, we need to look at the experience. You need to look at what are you doing to your customers? How are you transforming their lives? And these are the people who are going to win. And in terms of identifying improvements or friction in the experience, typically conduct research and then map out the user journeys or customer journeys where we can then identify the friction points in those journeys, right? And the idea is that you then remove that and introduce moments of delight and improvements in that experience as a whole. And then when you're trying to identify opportunities for the business, so for example, when you're creating your AI strategy in your organization, where are the opportunities in terms of efficiencies, in terms of your product and experience to your customers? We can use several tools. We have the kind of service design blueprint or customer journey mapping. This one has layers of a bit of both, but depending on the project, you might have different layers. And then you then map out, the customer journey or the user journey from trigger to go. What are the touch points with your service? What do you need to have in place for that service to be delivered to your customers? You can also add a layer of pain points. Where are the most points of friction? And then a layer on where are the opportunities to improve. And another tool as well that's very, very useful is the value curve mapping. So the value curve mapping comes from the Blue Ocean strategy. After you conduct customer research, and you identify the factors that makes them choose your product against others in terms of what are the competing factors, you can then map their perceived value in terms of for each factor, for example, configurability of a product or the price, or depending on the factors, and then the competing factors, right? So we can look at the competition, how your competition is placed in there, how your product is currently placed there, or your business. And then the most interesting thing is that you can then increase an element, decrease, eliminate, or create, and that's the exercise, right? So, for example, price. These competitors, they charge this amount of, this is their price. We want to make our price much lower, and we want to increase how much users or customers can configure our product, right? So you kind of, you adjust that, and that's how you can identify the blue ocean and how we can become more competitive in the market. And then you look at what do we want to eliminate completely from that, from our products or from our business. We don't deliver that to customers anymore because they don't value as much. And what are the things you want to create? And that's the end of my short talk. I welcome questions.